let me talk about The Hobbit.
Okay.
I saw The Hobbit a couple weeks ago because we've been off for a week, Jason, and
I have no idea what that feels like.
yeah. So
Kind of weird.
So I've got a lot of movies backed up here, and I'll do a couple of them quick hit. I do want to talk about The Hobbit a little bit, though. It was excessively long and overly indulgent.
Now, is that because they're trying to make it 3 movies, you think?
I think
'Cause that's what I've been hearing.
Yeah. I mean, it really felt like I was watching the extended edition of this film. Like, say what you will about how long the original ones were. The theatrical versions were pretty, like, tight. You know, they sort of had a focus.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the original 3 films that came out, 5-10 years ago.
Sure.
They were pretty tightly cut, at least in their theatrical versions, and they flowed and they worked. And then the extended editions were a little bit longer, had a lot more information for like the really deep fans, and they wanted to get into that. Great. This film had so many extra superfluous scenes, it almost started to feel like an anthology.
Okay.
Of like scenes from Middle Earth. It was like they had to put everything into this movie. And I totally understand why the studio wants it to be 3 movies, because they know they'll make $100 million every time they put one of these movies out. I'm not sure why Peter Jackson wanted this to be 3 movies. I mean, I get why he would want there to be like as much material in there, but it just seems like you need a little bit of restraint here. It's like there's a story to tell, and it just gets totally lost in this.
Well, he's trying to create epics, and
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to create 3 movies, do they all have to be 3-hour movies as
Yeah.
well? And I think you notice it in the film early on, in the early scene where they're gathering for the first time, and that scene just went on way too long.
Yeah.
And so I think that was an indication of what was to come.
Yeah, and I liked, and I liked the extended editions of the first 3 movies, but it was like everything that happened required some character to tell you the backstory of why that was happening.
Right.
It was like, and there's this one scene that's just total death to the movie, where it's Gandalf and Saruman, played by Christopher Lee, and Galadriel and the guy that Hugo Weaving plays, I can't remember his character's name, and they're having a conversation about the future. And it has nothing to do with the movie that we're watching. It has to do with the other 3 movies.
Right.
And it's like, and then Gandalf pulls out a sword and like, look at this sword. And then Hugo Weaving starts into a monologue, like a 10-minute monologue of what this sword means and who used it and why it was built. And it's like, why am I watching this? Why is this happening right now?
It's almost like a cutscene from a video game?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's exactly what it's like. It's like everything had to have its own little backstory, and it's like, and that's the sad part. There's some really amazing scenes in this movie, some really amazing, enjoyable scenes that I really liked, but there's so few of them. It's like there's like an hour and a half of really great stuff in there, and then there's another like 90 minutes of I could wait for this. I could watch this as a bonus feature on a DVD. I don't need this now. So yeah.
And did you? I'm not saying this is a bad thing. Maybe it's a good thing. But did you have the feeling that it was much lighter than the Lord of the Rings films?
It absolutely is.
And there's a fight sequence underground that reminded me a lot of an Indiana Jones film, where it was almost a comical Rube Goldberg type of situation. And, that was okay. I didn't mind that at all, but it does have a much lighter flavor than the other 3 films.
Yeah, I think The Hobbit as a book is like a kid's book.
Right.
So I totally understand why this would be a fluffier sort of movie. But so I didn't mind that at all.
Right.
I'd read reviews of that going in, that like, hey, this is sort of more like a kid's movie, so it's not, don't expect your deep, philosophical, looking into someone's soul and understanding them or anything like that. But, that is ladled in pretty heavily.
It is.
So,
but then it's, I guess, juxtaposed with some severed heads.
yes, it's
I hope
strange.
that's not a spoiler.
Yeah, I don't think so. But anyways, The Hobbit, I think I can't imagine what is going to be added to the extended edition, to be honest. I don't know how he could have had any more footage to put into the extended edition. I really think the better idea would have been to just make The Hobbit one movie, and if you want more Lord of the Rings movies, there's other material out there. You know, there's like J.R.R. Tolkien wrote like this whole Bible of the history of Middle-earth. There's got to be some good stories in there that you could mine for this universe, and that I think would be far more interesting than to turn a 200, 300-page book into a 9-hour film, essentially.
But then you think about the economy of making these 3 films with the same characters, and
no, I totally understand why you, as a studio, would want this to be 3 movies because they know that they're going to make their money back, and that's what you got to do. But
yeah, it's interesting because I mean, think about: are there any other franchises other than James Bond that? I mean, Twilight's over.
Yeah.
Star Wars is gearing up again.
Yeah.
Jack Reacher.
Jack Reacher, yeah.
I didn't see it.
Harry Potter's done.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like it. In the economy of franchises, it's kind of king at this point, regardless of the quality.
If you don't have a comic book character that you can mine for this stuff, then you're kind of out of luck. So, yeah, I totally understand why the studio did it. I just think it resulted in a plotting film. They did not reach sort of the epic stuff. What do you think
it means for the next couple movies? Does it?
I don't know. See, because I totally forget the book. I read the book when I was in high school. I have very little memory of it, but they kind of teased some of the stuff because in The Hobbit, there's a dragon involved. That's sort of like the thrust of the book. They're going to fight this dragon. So when we see the dragon, that might be very interesting, and I'm sure there will be more scenes that I will want to see. But you know, I did see it in 3D. I thought the 3D was fine. It didn't hurt, but it wasn't anything spectacular. I didn't see the high frame rate version, but you know, we'll next time we have Chris Eller on, I know he saw the high frame rate version. We'll have him discuss that.
Yeah.
Nowhere in Bloomington is playing high frame rate version. I was actually down in Knoxville over Christmas, and I got stuck there because of the snowstorm.
Right.
So I spent a day watching movies, and I was very tempted to see it because they had it in high frame rate. I was like, I'm really curious about that, but I didn't like it enough to sit through it a second time to see it in high frame rate. A Place for Film is recorded at WFIU Studios in Bloomington, Indiana.